Hey, Jeff, have you been seeing some of these videos that are going all over social media about, um, the washing of the feet and the shining of the shoes and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I have, and what I understand the nature of it and why a lot of people are doing that sort of thing, but I think it's really important that we touch on the cause and effect of these type of things, and in specific, uh, when one man should never bow. This is my opinion, of course, and I know this is going to be a controversial topic, and we might catch a little bit of flack for this. That's understandable. We spent an incredible amount of time involved in white nationalism, involved in far right extremism, and one thing that I can say is, anytime you have any race of people that's bowing down before another race of people, whether it's feet washing, whether it's asking for forgiveness, things like that, it further polarizes things. And even though a lot of the people that are doing this, they have the greatest of intentions, they're pure-hearted, kind people, and they think that they're doing something that's noble and virtuous and good. But the problem that they're not seeing is, as a movement propagandist, one of the things that I did in the National Socialist movement when I was involved is we would show these kind of videos to our membership and to people we were working on recruiting, to people that were sympathetic. We put that stuff out to show them, look, here's white people, in this case, for example, bowing down before other people. And, I think, personally, I think it's dangerous. It's really extremely dangerous, because what it's going to do, even though the people believe that it's noble and virtuous to do this, and they're doing it with the pure intentions, and no one's making them do it per se, as a propagandist from the movement, the movement and the far right groups will use that material and show the public and show people, look, white man, you are being forced to bow down before black people, even though that's not what they're trying to do. That's not the narrative. That's the narrative that the far right is going to have. So I guarantee it. That's what they're doing. So when these type of images are shown on television, shown on YouTube, shown in different places, and people from the far right are seeing it, they are using that to radicalize their people and to get them stirred up and angry. And it works. It works. We recruited people all day long with these type of tactics. When I was involved in the NSM, we specifically were showing a lot of videos from the race riots and different things that were going on in South Africa. I remember this video of a man being stripped and beaten to death in the streets while traffic was going by. And that was one of the things that we used to radicalize people. Now we're seeing videos from all over the country in different places where these type of things are happening right here in America. And from the far right perspective, they will use that to radicalize their membership. At least that's how I feel. What do you think about it?
Well, I think that as human beings, we have the capacity to empathize with what is going on and with the black race, or any race for that matter, without having to feel like we are being took off in like an even playing field, for instance. To raise the black community up to feel equal is great, and that's one thing. But when they are now what seems like pushing the white race below, where's the equality in that then?
Yeah, and I think it's important, and we both agree, I think I can speak for us both on this, that we do empathize with the movement and that not the movement, excuse me, like the Black Lives Matter movement, that Black people should have equal rights and they should not be persecuted. They should not, like what happened to George Floyd was absolutely horrific. I think just about everybody in America can agree that was absolutely horrible. Mm-hmm. It should have never happened. And the abuse of police officers involved in that, need to face justice. I don't think there's very few people in this country, I think, that would disagree with that statement. And I agree with the peaceful protests, and no one in this country should be made to feel lesser or anything like that. But at the same time, no one should be uplifted over someone else. No one should be bowing down before anyone else. The moment you do that, I mean, we're hearkening back to like slavery times where, one race is being subjugated over another. And that's the type of thing that led to the racial problems in the United States that we're dealing with today and in other countries as well. But I mean, our focus, is mainly here in America, and race relations have been awful. And doing things like that, no matter how pure or noble the intentions of the individuals are that are behind that, it radicalizes others. It will radicalize people, and it will make matters worse. So I mean, that's why we're discussing this controversial topic today. And I know there's people out there that don't want to hear this stuff, and they think that what we're saying is wrong. We've been there. We were there in the far right. We know what we used as tools and as propaganda to propagandize our people. And what we're seeing right now, a propagandist in the movement doesn't even have to try right now. All they have to do is simply click, 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 one after another. There's these images of things that will radicalize them because of some of this. And I'm not taking away, by saying that, I don't want to take anything away from the peaceful movement and the peaceful protests that are calling for justice, because those things are important. But what I feel like is that extremists are controlling the narrative right now, and you've got the extreme far right on one side and the extreme far left on the other. And both extremists are carrying and trying to control the narrative. And those are the minority of people in this country. I think the majority is right where we're at, in the middle, that people want to see justice for George Floyd. People want to see the end of police abuse and misuse of force and things like that. And I think all of us in America can agree on that. But what we don't want to see is any one race subjugated to another, or any one race lifted up over another, because that's what causes the problems.
Right, exactly. I agree.
Excuse me. Hey, excuse me. I work for Black Lives Matter. Sure. I'm sorry. I work for Black Lives Matter. I'm sorry that I scared you. Okay. But since I work for that company, my CEO has told me to come out today and to bring you on your knees, because you have white privilege. So if they see that a white person is getting on their knees, that shows solidarity for the situation. And could you just please apologize for your white privilege? Just apologize.
I am. I'm trying to think of the right words to say, because that's a big thing to say.
It's big.
It comes from.
It's large in this country.
I'm incredibly sorry that.
With this country, we have that President Donald Duck, that clown in office. He's brought a lot of bigotry, and you're not a part of it, right?
No, God, jeez.
No. And so,
Thank
just.
you for letting me have a moment.
Personally, when I see a clip like this, I know how unhealthy I feel that is. And again, a lot of people will say, okay, it's coming from a place that, white people did a lot of terrible things to Black people in this country over the years, through the slavery times, up until the civil rights movement. And even now, I mean, you still have a lot of disparity and things of that nature. But like for the young woman in the video, what is she apologizing for? Like, she didn't own a slave. She's not, as far as we know, hasn't oppressed anyone personally or anything like that. So I, for one, don't feel like we as white people today should have to apologize for the sins of the past. That's just like saying, okay, well, Charles Manson or Jeffrey Dahmer were white guys, and we should apologize for them because we're white too. That it doesn't make any sense. It's not sensible. If we were the ones in our case, like in my case, especially, I hurt a lot of people over the years and said a lot of terrible things. And I feel like I will apologize, and I do apologize for my past behavior, because those were things that I did. Those were things that I have to take responsibility for as a human being. I didn't own any slaves. My ancestors weren't even in this country during the slavery times. So I'm not going to apologize for that. And I don't feel like this whole white guilt thing is healthy. And I don't think it's a good positive thing for people to engage in, because it radicalizes other people to fight against it. Not to apologize for something you didn't do. I mean, what are your thoughts?
Exactly. Have you seen the posts and the videos of some white parents having their children apologize? I mean, that's just it's not mentally healthy. I mean, no one should feel guilty or ashamed of the color they were born. Everyone should have pride in the color they were born, in their own culture. There's nothing wrong with that. That doesn't make someone a bad or evil person. And what I'm seeing for the last few weeks now are all these posts of parents having their children write signs, I'm sorry, I have white privilege. That is, it's just not healthy. It's not healthy at all for people to be doing to their children. And I think it actually almost borders child abuse. And I would be saying this for any race doing that. Any race. No one should be doing that.
Right. And it's not even that it's a black and white or brown or yellow or anything like that. It's just not a healthy thing for any individual, I feel, to be engaging in this type of behavior. And
right.
If nothing else, it causes animosity. It causes a lot of animosity in anyone that feels like, put yourself in a situation. You're walking down the street, like in the case of the clip that we just saw. Somebody, runs up to you out of nowhere and approaches you and says, "Hey, you need to apologize for being white and for your privilege." You say that to the wrong person. Anybody. We're seeing right now, and unfortunately, I've spent an incredible amount of time in the past few weeks watching videos from all over the country, from protests, from riots, from some of the racial fighting and different things like that are going on in different parts of the country. And you can feel the negative energy that's coming from so many people. You look on social media, I mean, all you have to do is flip on Twitter or Facebook or anything like that, and you're seeing now middle of the road people becoming radicalized because, like I said, you have the extremists controlling the narrative, whether it's the far left or the far right. And now anybody carrying an American flag in certain places, we were seeing that's considered racist or hateful. Maybe we have a clip of that as well, but there's so many different things like this that are going on. We're seeing regular people that would have never been radicalized or would have never found interest in the movement finding themselves in these groups, whether it's on the far left or the far right. And I'm saying, as far as coming from the white supremacist side or the white nationalist side, a lot of people are falling into that now because this white guilt thing is making people really angry. And if I was still involved in the movement, I can tell you that's the stuff I'd be using to recruit because it works.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It just blows my mind. And I think there's many people that, involved in Black Lives Matter that have a good heart and, they're not trying to do anything sneaky with it. But there's also a lot of people that are using it for very, bad intentions for sure.
Yeah, and that's just it. I mean, it's a good cause, and I don't think that a lot of the people that are involved in this, they simply don't see it. I don't think it's nefarious, or I don't think it's that they're sitting back plotting to cause problems between the races. I really honestly believe that a lot of the people just simply don't see this. They don't understand this narrative or the nuances of these things. And you and I discussed this before the show even. As former extremists, when we talk about things like this, there's people that'll twist our words, or that will say, oh, we're making excuses, or we're sticking up for the white people, or things like that. Hey, if we were sticking up for specifically the white people, and this is what we wanted, was to incense people against each other and to get the races against each other, all we'd be doing is promoting, is showing this stuff and saying, and keep it rolling. What we're trying to do is warn America, because we've had these lived experiences. We've come out of these specific groups that use these things to radicalize people. And what we're trying to do here is warn people that this is not helping. It's going to make things worse. It's going to radicalize people, and it's going to tear our country apart if we don't have some real leadership in this country stepping up. We've got things going on in this country right now where you've got autonomous zones where people with American flags are being attacked if they walk in there. No police, just yesterday or the day before, some people were shot and died,
Yep.
or one guy died. And, it's like, it's going to get worse if people don't start heeding these warnings.
I mean, what is on with that? That just blows my mind that they're allowing this to go on.
Right. Have we seen anything like this in our lifetimes where they're saying, oh, well, let the police station go because we don't want to risk anybody's life defending the police station. Okay, well, there's a murderer down the street here too. But hey, if we go try to stop him, he might murder some more people. So should you just let him go? I mean, that's the senselessness of that type of thing. Well, let's let them just take the police stations or the city hall and for example, in the Chaz zone in Seattle, I guess the mayor has even went so far as to give them new barricades that they could draw graffiti on, and brought toilets and things like that in there. I mean, I don't know if the public has read some of these things, what the demands are there, but they're not talking about just defunding the police. I mean, they're talking about completely getting rid of it. Now people are losing their lives there, and businesses are being held. I saw a video yesterday of a business owner's fence getting kicked down and smashed down right on the edge of that zone, and the police wouldn't even come. So
they're also, from what I've read and seen in videos, store owners are saying that they are being forced to pay these gangs, whatever this gang is that's in charge, like the mob used to do, the extortion.
It's really disturbing.
And weren't they white person $10 as well?
Sorry, what?
I heard that each white person had to pay $10.
Oh wow, I haven't seen that yet.
Right.
I wanted to ask you too, Jenna. I think it's really interesting to our viewers and listeners on this podcast or video cast, that we should talk a little bit about how you were raised and how you grew up. Growing up from a very young age. I mean, from since you were born, your family was involved in the movement. So I think your experiences and your insights to this sort of thing are really incredibly important. And could you tell us a little bit about how, like, the family structure in this type of thing, how what we're seeing today would be shown to children that their families are involved in the far right, in our case. So from the far right's perspective, how does it affect the children, and how would, for example, just how would your father have shown you, like if he was here right now, looking at what was going on with society, and you were a child, how would that have been presented to you? What's going on now?
Well, everything that's going on right now is literally everything that I was always told growing up that eventually would happen. It's all coming true, right? Right before our eyes. He would just have to turn the TV on. See, told you, this is what's going to happen. I told you. So there wouldn't really be much, having to convince or anything like that. Just seeing that, the white race is being told to apologize, even though, like you said, we weren't here. I can tell you one thing. I would have never owned a human being. I would have never enslaved another human being. And most people wouldn't. Even people in the movement, in the white power movement growing up, I heard them say the same thing. Not all of them. I'm sure there was a decent plenty that, scumbags and would do that. But many people, that growing up, I heard say the same thing, that they would have never done that. But even just to remove that group of people, the normal American would not do that. They would have never done that. So to just have someone apologize, yes, I feel bad. I think it was awful. I do not agree with it. It was disgusting. But I didn't do it. My children didn't do it. So I think there is a big difference between empathizing and admitting to something, practically begging for forgiveness over something you didn't do. And I would tell anybody that. Don't do that. No matter what color you are, you don't do that.
Right. It's a tough subject for us to talk about because, we say these things. Again, there's people that want to twist it into something that it isn't. And we're saying these things because we're trying to get the conversation going, to try to have dialogue and understanding that these are serious issues. And no matter, we could flip the script in the sense and say, okay, so white people did own slaves here in this country and did terrible things to black people. And those people that had done those things should be held accountable. Just as with the police, there's bad cops. We saw one, put his knee on the neck of George Floyd until he died. And the man was pleading for his life. It was horrific, but all of a sudden, society, the media, whatever, is using this broad paintbrush and saying all the cops in the entire system, basically, and no one's saying it in these words, but this is the message that the public is hearing, is that now police are bad and we have to get rid of them because there's these instances where bad police did some bad things. Can't we see this as sure, there should be better training and there's lots of things we can do to fix the police departments, and there's necessary, the criminal justice system in this country, that could be a whole nother show because it's corrupt in a lot of ways. It's really bad, and we have more people in prisons per capita than even some of the most oppressive third world nations in the world. There's so many people in the prison system. So by no means are we coming in here trying to make any less or make light of that. And the fact of the matter
is, it's not. There are a lot of corrupt police, and there are a lot of people who die at the hands of police of all races. That's just the cold hard facts.
Right. Why is society going, okay, well, this officer killed this black man. I saw a video of a young white man begging for his life and crawling in a hotel hallway. And he was so scared. And the cops telling him, get down on your knees and put your hands behind your head. He put his hands behind his head, and then he moved them behind his back. And the cop was like, hey, I don't know if you have a weapon there. Don't do that again or I'm going to shoot you. And he was yelling at him. And this kid, you never know how one's going to react in a situation like that. But looking at the video, you could tell this guy was so scared he wasn't going to pull no weapon. But he did it again. He moved his hands back there again, and the cop just blew him away. And you don't see white people, I hadn't even heard of that until I was, doing research for the show and looking at some of these things that took place. I think as a society, if we want to be more colorblind and stop seeing, of course, everybody's going to see color. We all see color. But if we stop judging people based on the color of their skin or stop placing blame, instead of saying, hey, there were some bad officers that did some bad things, they need to pay the price. Instead, we're having people riot in this country and attack police officers, kill police officers. There was a couple some got poisoned in New York, and some have been killed since this stuff is going on. It's really, execution style stuff. Really violent, bad, terrible things happening. And you can't say a lot of these people that are in the police departments are good people that have families and are providing for their children and all that sort of thing. To say, well, because this guy that killed George Floyd and some of the fellow officers and other corrupt police from different parts of the country, and blaming the whole police department across the country, it makes no sense. It's like saying, well, there's some black people out there rioting, so all black people are rioters. Or saying, like I was saying, the script, because some black people are rioting and burning down cities, should we run up to random black people on the streets and go, hey, you need to apologize. You need to get down on your knees and apologize to me as a white man because your people were out there rioting? Absolutely not. And if anybody does it, they're part of the problem. So why can we reverse that, right?
Yep, very good point. There are, just from me being in like mom groups and things like that for parenting and stuff on Facebook, there are wives saying that their husband is a police officer and they're begging them not even to go to work. Their children are crying when daddy's leaving, scared that something bad's going to happen just because they're a police officer. That's awful. It's awful what's going on. Hate will not stomp out hate. That's just, it's not going to work.
Thank you for saying that, because that's hate begets hate, and we know that from our lived experiences. And just like I believe we mentioned it on the last show, no one's ever left the movement by getting punched in the face. Violence begets violence, hate begets hate. And if you have, the more this stuff is amplified by the media, by people in general, on social media, regular media, and just people in general, what we're seeing is regular people that should be middle of the road, that don't like the left extreme or the right extreme, getting radicalized because they feel like they're being forced to choose sides. And this is something I'm hearing, and obviously I don't drop names or things like that, but I'm hearing from people literally almost every day. And some of these people have been out of the movement. They're not public like we are, but there's hundreds of people that have left the movement over the years that are out and they're against racism. And I'm getting contacted all the time by people that are just lit up, angry. And I wouldn't consider these people radicals. They might have been radicals before in the past, but they're where we're at. They came out of that, and we're seeing regular, normal people that normally wouldn't be involved in any of this stuff all of a sudden radicalizing because they're getting mad about the bowing and the begging, or they're getting mad about the rioting, or they're seeing some of these videos where white people are attacking blacks or black people are attacking whites, and it's radicalizing people on all sides of the spectrum. And I do want to run another clip, and I'd really like your thoughts on this. I don't know if you've seen it or not, Jen, but this is
Okay.
from right here in Michigan, in the Flint area. Can we run the clip?
Oh, boy, nigga, don't touch. Don't touch. Don't touch. Don't quit touching. Yeah, them bitches hurt. Them bitches hurt. Move. Sorry, man. Hurt. I'm sorry.
Your thoughts on that one, Jen?
My thoughts are, why wasn't that on CNN or Fox or one of the other mainstream news? Why not?
I'm almost at a loss for words myself. So I was, it's.
Is that a hate crime?
I think it should be.
If someone does.
I saw another version of that video that showed his face, and that you wasn't bleeping out all the words, where you could actually hear it. And at first, some of the feedback I saw on it, they said, oh, well, the reason he attacked him was because, well, the kid looks like he's about a 15-year-old white boy, maybe 16, and the guy that was hitting him is a pretty good-sized guy. So first of all, like, why are you gonna do that? Now, supposedly, they claim, the guys recording it and filming it claimed that the young man that was on the ground being beaten by this grown man had said the N-word. Macy's, which that happened in Macy's out by Flint, they ran the security footage and all that, and there was no racial epithets stated. It was an unprovoked attack. So this was just random act of violence here a couple days ago. I mean, we've got so much of this kind of stuff going on. There was another horrible video from some of the rioting that showed this guy it's one after another. I mean, I can't even say how many videos there is, because it's countless, showing people just brutally being stomped on the ground, and it's a miracle more of these people are not dying, with some of this horrific violence. That actually was a fairly mild video compared to some of the ones we've seen that probably are almost too graphic to even show on this program.
No one can sit there and tell me that it wasn't racially motivated. It's a hate crime. And it really should be, he should be charged with a hate crime. And unfortunately, when you have groups of people that are pushing for this narrative, which they might be verbally saying in one breath, equality, but then actions and all the other words, that is not at all what's going on. That's not at all what the narrative is. And this, unfortunately, is exactly what's going to happen, what we just saw in that video.
Well, we seem to be seeing a really big uptick in racial violence around the country right now, and we're seeing reports and news, and you got to search a lot of this stuff, because they just show on the nightly news. I feel like they don't really show all what's going on. You just see
because it doesn't follow their narrative,
right? And you don't even know what's going on in some of the different cities. Like when we were doing research for the project, we were coming up on one from even we saw a video in York, Pennsylvania, where it showed a woman being dragged out of her car and people jumping on the roof of the car and smashing out all the windows.
I saw that.
And it was like 2 weeks ago, and
No reason whatsoever.
Completely unprovoked. So what we're seeing is the breakdown of law and order in the country, and we're seeing racism. I feel like right now the racism in the country is at such a heightened level it's worse. The racism right now, I feel like, is worse than at any time in my lifetime, even
Absolutely.
even, you know, when we were involved in the movement. I mean, this is the kind of stuff, like you had said earlier, that was predicted, you know, by the movement. And this is exactly what they want. You know, this
And
is exactly what.
And wanted.
I'm sorry, what?
I was just going to say it's also what they wanted, right? As you said the same thing.
Right. We're saying the same things. And that's exactly it. It was the far right wishes, hope for, planned for civil war, a race war, a societal breakdown, and the acceleration of the end of the government. And from the far right perspective,
Far left wants the same thing, as
yeah.
far as I'm.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And the difference, there's similarities and there's differences. And, you know, this is hot button stuff right here. And especially, I know when I criticize the far right, and I'm sure you've gotten it as well, you know, they'll call us traitors. They'll say, you know,
Oh yeah,
threaten us. You know, we've both been there. You know, and then on the far, when you criticize the far left, and I probably get just as many, if not more, threats from the far left, because I'll call out this stuff too. I'll say, hey, this is communism. This is anarchy. This is Antifa. And people get mad. Oh, Antifa is, no, our veterans in World War II were Antifa and all these weird things. No, they weren't. No, they weren't. Antifa was founded by the communists. I mean, you know, you can look it up. Anybody can look it up. It's very simple.
you know what? That's the other thing. People, it all comes down to, I don't care what a group even calls themselves. What are their actions? What are they preaching?
Exactly. And I'm not picking on nobody. We're not saying, oh, we're just coming here, we're going to do this show and blast Antifa or blast the far right, you know, and both sides are extremists. And I'm not saying everybody on the left is bad. I have many friends that are on the left that are good, wonderful, decent human beings, amazing people. And I know people on the right as well, conservatives and things like that, that are good, wonderful, amazing people as well. And even when you go into the extremism parts, not everybody that's involved in extremism is a piece of garbage. You know, there's people that get hooked in there that believe that they're doing the right things. I know we did when we were there. We thought we were doing something good and noble. And there's those people in there. And there is really bad people in there as well. There's really violent, terrible people as well. So no one's getting a free pass here. Not on this program. If you do wrong, whether you're a cop, whether you're white, whether you're black, whether you're right, whether you're left, if you're doing a crappy thing and you're hurting other people, we're going to call you out. Simple as that.
Absolutely. Say it again louder, Jeff.
Right. Stuff gets me worked up. I mean, it really does, because it's like,
Let it out.
We're trying to help. We're trying to save our country here. And these people are like, oh no, you're just being mean to the left, or you're just being mean to the right. You know, you're this, you're that. No, people need to start listening, because what we're doing is we're forewarning. We're trying to stop this violence. We're trying to save lives. We're trying to stop our cities and our country from being burned down and destroyed. And this is one of the big reasons that I left the movement in the first place, was because I saw this stuff coming. I felt it coming. I knew it was coming. We predicted it all those years. And here it is, and people don't want to listen still. And instead of listening and taking this stuff in and understanding and using their brains, they're going, oh no, you're still being radical. How is what we're saying radical? This is rational. This is from people that were there. We know this. We use these tactics to radicalize. Now we're seeing it in real time, and people need to start listening, or we're going to lose our country. It's simple as that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's really been ticking me off lately, seeing all these posts from people that I didn't think I would ever see posts like this come from. And it is, all it is doing is making everything worse from someone and from people who are supposed to be knowledgeable about these things and want peace and unity. But sowing discord is not helping whatsoever. But yet when people like you and I come out and we say these things, we're the problem.
And I think we should talk about that a little bit. I don't want to dwell on it too much, but I do want to address it. I think as formers, and I think this is really important, I think it's incredibly important because, and we discussed this privately, before even doing this show, that as formers, I believe a lot of the other guys and gals that I know that have been involved in extremism, they're afraid to say these things, even though a lot of them know these truths and they know this stuff. Some of them don't because they weren't involved long enough. If you were involved for a year or two, or in some cases a few months, you don't know these things. You don't understand these things. Those of us that spent many, many years in it, that lived it, that this was our life. This was something that we participated in a long time. We understand these nuances a little better, but I think there's a lot of fear, and it takes a little bit of courage to come out and say these things, because there is people that don't want to hear this stuff from former extremists. They don't want to believe it, or they think they know better, or they think, well, I'm an academic, I've studied this for 10 years and I know better than you. No, you don't. I mean, there's things that that maybe we don't know, but those of us that were there, that were part of this stuff, that were the foot soldiers on the ground, that were orchestrating it from the propaganda perspective especially, we know exactly what we were doing when we were in there. And now we're trying to warn people because we don't want to see our country destroyed. And I think, we've discussed this before too. We're taking risks by just saying this stuff. We're going to get bad feedback and threats from the far right for saying this stuff because we're exposing their narratives. And we're going to get feedback and negativity from the far left that are mad that, we're showing them, for what they're doing. So you have, neither side is right. Neither side is correct. I mean, so and we're not parroting someone else's narrative. We're not saying like, this is okay, or making excuses for it. I've seen so much, and we could probably touch on this too a little bit, Jen, but there's a lot of well-intentioned and good people out there that think, or that are making excuses for rioting, for the destruction of our cities, and saying, well, they were oppressed, so it's okay that they should burn things down or take over police departments. I mean, what is your thoughts on that, on some of the people that are excusing some of this behavior or cheering it on in some cases?
I honestly, it's hard to put into words. It's shocking. It's shocking how anyone could excuse any of that behavior whatsoever. Look, I get it. When you see someone, murdered, like George Floyd was, I get it. I was pissed myself. And to be quite honest with you, my first reaction was, burn it all down. That was my very first reaction. But that's, the moment of anger, and you can't act on those things. You can't act on with emotions. You have to be logical about things. You can't, to where you can't paint everyone with a broad brush. And right now, you have people who are reacting emotionally. You have a group of, another group of people who are just using this as an excuse to just go out and keep doing criminal things, because they always have. And then you have another big group of people who they're really not thinking for themselves whatsoever. They're following the herd. That's all it is. And yeah, like you said, we're going to get a lot of backlash from saying this. We've talked, privately, and I've said, I don't know if I can say that. I don't know if I can say that. But you know what? At the end of the day, I'm going to speak how I feel. And if someone doesn't like it, That's their problem.
The truth, there's a quote I'm looking for, but the truth fears no consequence, or the truth fears no.
Truth fear does not fear investigation. Is that where you're going with that?
There's so many about the truth, because
that's one of my.
Yes, it's absolutely good, and that's the thing. So sure, we're going to upset people by saying some of these things, and we're going to it's in our personal best interest. It's not in our personal best interest to talk about these things, because I feel like there's people that would like us to state whatever their narrative is, whether it's, far left, far right, it doesn't matter. But the truth does not fear any consequences. And I mean,
I can't sleep at night. I would not be able to sleep at night if I just repeated things like a parrot. And you know what I've noticed is all of these slogans and stuff, and I'm not going to really, this isn't about COVID or anything, but it was the same thing when COVID started. All of these slogans that came into play, and people, they just stop thinking for themselves. They start repeating everything because it's what everyone else is doing. I've never been like that, ever. I've never been that person. And at 41 years old, I'm not going to start now.
Absolutely. And I think it's really critical. We're at a critical juncture right now where we're not seeing leadership from a lot of our politicians and so-called community leaders. And you've got, as we briefly touched on earlier, you have cities in America right now where people are setting up so-called autonomous zones, and where there's no police, no law and order. You're hearing, let's just talk about Seattle for a minute in the so-called Chaz, or they're calling it the CHOP zone now. Specifically, I've been watching some of the, there's been undercover reporters that have gone in there that have filmed stuff. The Seattle mayor is on television saying, hey, it's like a wonderful block party. It's all fun and all this kind of stuff. And then the moment it gets dark, people are getting shot and raped and killed, and people are blocking the paramedics from coming in there, and people are dying. It's just unbelievable. And it's the whole concept of it. It's like, okay, everybody's sharing, and it's just this wonderful thing. It sounds great on paper. A lot of things sound great on paper, but in reality, when you have all it takes is one unhinged individual or one criminally minded individual to start doing things that are not acceptable, and then what? It's just mass chaos. And then with the herd mentality, it seems to be even worse, because a lot of people, I think, that wouldn't even engage in criminality that we're seeing around the country with the burning and looting and stuff like that, they're just seeing an opportunity. Well, hey, everybody else is running in there and getting a free pair of Nikes, maybe I should too. Or everybody else is throwing fire bombs at the police station, maybe I should too. And there's no consequences,
Exactly. That place, that Chaz place, that's like a criminal's playground right now. They're walking around with AKs and stuff. It just blows my mind. Making people pay money and
they're not everything with it is bad per se. Like, one of the reporters that was covering some of the violence and things like that, they said, yeah, in the daytime, it was nice. Most of the people were treating each other right and being kind to one another. And there was good things there too. So, I don't think we should just focus on the bad. Of course there's good things too, and not everybody involved in it is bad or anything like that, but you have to go back to the laws of the land and the nation. Unless this is what the nation wants, and everybody wants some sort of violent revolution to take place, you can't just say, hey, this, it reminded me of something a lot of us in the movement used to talk about, was like balkanization. and the movement still talks about it, where you have like what happened in Yugoslavia, where you have ethnic groups, the Serbs, the Croats, the Bosnians, etc., and so forth. And they're breaking down into these areas, and then they were having ethnic cleansing because the Serbs wanted the Bosnians out of their areas and vice versa. And so you're having all this killing and ethnic cleansing, which happened in our lifetime. That was going on in the 90s. And that's where this is headed. And the hatred, the racial hatred that's getting worked up is coming from some of it's coming from these behaviors, where, you know, say as a black person, you're watching what happened to George Floyd, or you're watching some of the other videos where black people have been gunned down. Of course, you're going to be angry. You have every right to be angry. I think all people should be angry when they see things like that. But grabbing a gun and going and taking out a white person, or making someone beg for forgiveness that didn't do nothing to you, is not the right tactic either. So what it's doing is it's radicalizing those other people. Or so white person, for example, like our example, my example from the movement days, where we showed a video of a white person being stoned to death in the street in South Africa. We use that as propaganda to make white people angry and at black people, and we told them, hey, this is what's coming to America, so you better get ready, you better get armed, you better train, you better prepare for the race war, the civil war.
Yep.
We shoved that propaganda down people's throats, in my case, for, you know, over 2 decades. And so clearly these are obvious things that that people should understand, and I hope that our voices amplify and people can you know, take some of this stuff in before we head down a murderous, dangerous road in this country that's going to be more brutal and horrible than anything most of us have probably seen in our lifetimes.
Well, what breaks the cycle of hate? It's love. Love is the only thing that's going to break that cycle. Not what's going on now.
Absolutely. And I think, I mean, how do you envision that? I mean, I know where you're going with this, and I think it's really important because we've focused on a lot of negative things so far. So how do we fix it, Jen? How do we fix it?
You know, it's, in my mind, it just seems so easy. You know, when I you know, I'm watching, you know, TV, social media, videos on there, or just, you know, in person dealing with people. It's just easy. I just care about people, you know, regardless of skin color. And just know that, you know, they're human beings. That's, you know, we're all the same. We're just happen to be born with a different skin color. And I really think that I used to say, I don't see color. I don't say that anymore because that's kind of ignorant in a way. You know, obviously we see skin color. We are different colors. But it doesn't matter. That doesn't matter whatsoever. And to keep harping on it, though, always bringing someone, you know, each other's skin color into issues keeps it going, as far as I'm concerned. It just keeps it going.
Right. Well, I mean, we all heard, you know, growing up and stuff, you know, and you know, we wholeheartedly believe it, you know, that society should be colorblind in that sense. And of course, yes, we see color, but it shouldn't define us. Like,
correct.
As a man, or as a woman in your case, as individuals, we should be defined by our actions, our deeds, what we are, you know, how we act, how we treat one another, how we behave, not based on, oh, well, that guy's white, or that guy, or all Asians are great at math because they're Asian, you know, or all black people are good at sports because they're black. That's so ignorant and stupid, and that's the stuff that we fell for, which got us, you know, in the movement in the first place, is those broad brush stereotypes. It's the same thing where people say all cops are dirty because there's been a bunch of dirty cops across the country. Those are bad individuals, bad human beings, in some cases, individuals that made mistakes, and that, not that it's excusable, but that have to take responsibility for those mistakes. To broad brush or broad paint everybody into a box because of their color is not right. It's unhealthy, and amplifying those things by pointing them out, I think, causes resentment, and it breeds hatred, it breeds anger, and
division.
Absolutely, yeah.
Here's what I think. You to go back to your question, I think it starts at home. It starts at home, because my children, especially, recently with my younger children, they didn't even understand that there was a difference. They literally just looked at people as people. And sadly, when I felt I had to explain racism to them, and they were actually outraged. They thought it was horrible. But they didn't understand, whatsoever. They were, especially my youngest, he was like, why? But we're all the same. It's just a different color. That's all. And, it made me really proud, especially coming from, where I come from. I was like, thank God. I was just so proud of them. I started crying. And then they didn't understand that either, because they have no idea about my past. I just can't tell them.
No, I was just going to say, you broke the cycle, Jen, and
yes, we did.
Really, that's really amazing and special, and it's fantastic.
It is. And then sometimes they're trying to look over my shoulder when I'm watching these videos and stuff, because I don't want it to naturally radicalize them. So I'm trying to shield them from that.
Yeah. A friend of mine, Daryl Davis, he had, we're talking about people when they were kids and things like that. And Daryl's black. For those that don't know him, he's a world famous musician. He used to play with Chuck Berry and Little Richard, and he's a really fantastic human being. And when I first met Daryl, he had told me about when he was a Boy Scout or a Cub Scout, and how he was in a parade and people were throwing rocks at him, and he's like 7-8 years old. And this is very similar to when you said you were explaining about to your son about racism, and didn't get it because he was kind of shielded from that, which is fantastic. Daryl was similar. Like, he didn't realize why they were throwing rocks at him, and they were throwing rocks at him because he was black. And his parents had to kind of explain that to him at that age. So that helped motivate him on this quest, which he's on to this day. We've done speaking engagements and things like that together, and to this day, Daryl will say to people, like, how can you hate me when you don't know me? And it's a simple little thing like that. Like, if you break down that statement, like, why would you hate somebody that you don't know? Or it's so simple, but why would you hate somebody you don't know? How could you? Why? So it's like, I feel like we have a lot that we can, because of our past and because of our life experiences and stuff, there's a lot we can teach the public, and there's a lot to be learned from our shared experiences and things like that. And that's one of the reasons we're Jen and I were doing this program, is to try to help educate and teach others and things of that nature.